Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How's this
Hello.
going? Just pretend like this is the first time we see each other.
Oh,
Oh, someone's got tea. You drink tea. I don't know you.
No, actually, no, it's just water because I have no cup left, so I just have to use tea.
That is a cup. It's just a tiny cup.
I know, right? All right, so what's up, guys? What's new?
Hi,
Hi.
how are you? What's your name?
It's too
We
much.
never met before.
you can see my name.
Oh,
Mine's
Jerry.
this side. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brent?
Thanks, sure. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Are you still conquering worlds and taking away wishes?
Yeah.
It's good.
It's a work
Good.
in progress.
Slow but sure.
All right. So welcome back, everyone. Today we're gonna be doing a topic on politics in space, right? I hope you're ready. But before we get into that, can I sell some merch?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Have
now
at
we got like buy one get one free promotions. Just type down "going to Mars" on the comment, and then we'll send you a promotion code to go purchase it on our website. So yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So I think we have quite a few topics to talk about today as well. I think like 5 or something.
Yeah, about.
Yep. So let's see. Okay. So yeah, the first one gonna be about like the outer space treaties. Second one is from Brent, space junks, and then the next one from Daniel, criminal justice, role and future potentials for the USSF, and then pathway to independence of Mars. Cool. So shall we dive into it?
Yeah.
Am I making it too serious?
No, it's fine. We're going to talk about some cool space policies in politics. So
Nice.
yeah.
All right. So the first one, anybody ever heard about like outer space treaty at all?
Yeah. I assume that's a question for the audience.
And to us as well.
Okay. Anyone else?
Everybody. It's just gonna be you and me.
Go ahead and explain for us.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know much about it as well. I think it has something to do with like prohibiting, like like stationing of like weapons, and then it also has to do with like space supposed to be for all, and then you can't exactly claim it for like one nation or something. But that's what I know. Although I do have their site open, but I'm not sure if I should read it through. Should I or should I not?
Maybe if he gives you a lot of context, that might help.
Okay, so I think there's like a few principles on it, right? So I mean, I'm gonna read through it, and then maybe you guys can give me opinions on what you think about all these principles. Well, the first one, the explorations and use of outer space shall be carried out for the benefits and in the interests of all countries and shall be the province of all mankind. Oh my God. Why am I reading this? It's so proper.
You chose this.
Technically, Geek's supposed to help me with this, but
I'm so sorry.
no worry. And then the second one is like the outer space should be free for explorations and then used by all states. And next is outer space is not subject to national appropriations by claim of sovereignty, by mean of use or occupations, or by any other means. Oh geez, am I really have to read all of this?
You don't have all of it. Just take the highlights there. These sounds.
Okay. There's a fail. I could leave a link so you guys can go read it yourself.
Awesome. Daniel, do you like? I don't know how much you guys know about this. I could try to give a little bit of context as to why this thing exists, if that would help.
Yes, I did notice it was created. It's the Treaty of 1967. So that's probably a important date of what was going on. But yeah, if you can help everyone watching understand it better.
Sure. So when basically after World War II and shortly thereafter, the Cold War kicked off, is what we say. This was between the Soviet Union and the United States, and part of that war was sort of who could get, part of the space race, right? Also, nuclear armaments were a big part of that. So I think it's 1957. Sputnik was launched by the USSR, Soviet Union, into space, and it was a tiny little satellite, I think about the size of a soccer ball. But the implications of that were much larger, because that sort of told the United States, hey, we can send missiles up and over into space, into lower Earth orbit, and drop nuclear weapons on you. So that terrified the US. They started investing a lot more resources into their rocketry and space programs. And as the Cold War continued into the 60s, I believe that this treaty was probably put into place with that in mind. So, they don't want nuclear weapons being deployed in orbit or around Earth for that reason. They also don't want nation states to start claiming territory in space. So that's why this treaty was signed at the time, to kind of limit that. However, times change, and so has kind of dynamics of space and how we interact there. So yeah, there's a little bit of context. I hope that helps.
So is it like mostly enforced by the US?
I can't remember who the signatories are. The US and the USSR are now Russia. Probably the largest proponents of this at the time. I don't actually know who the signatories are. I don't have the signatories in front of me. But yeah, that would be. I would say that's probably the reason for it, for the most part. But yeah, as I was saying, kind of like times have changed, political dynamics have changed. The Cold War ended. Now you got different powers in play. So, yeah. Do you guys, Daniel? I don't know if you have something you want to comment on here, because I feel like I'm just talking a lot. But
No. It would make sense to me, since it's we're talking about the UN, that it would be. I guess if you look at the Security Council, they are the main authority in the UN, and I believe each of those countries are developing or have developed space programs. So it makes sense for me if, to answer Julia's question, like who's keeping up with this, who's in charge. China has a very well-developed space program, Russia, obviously, and the US. So, yeah, I see those main powers having, I don't know the term, but being, I guess, in charge of making sure everything, the status quo remains, I suppose.
I mean, like with all these treaties, right? I think last time, I think was it the episode 0 with Brent and Gig, I think I sort of asked, like, how feasible it is, like, like if these policies still apply in, today dynamic, that sort of things, or how realistic it is, because I know that, sometimes it could be quite utopia, but with like the fights over resources and whatnot, how like feasible?
That's a good question. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, remembering last week's discussion, how P. We Want explained how once you get up into space, there's really no political boundaries, or there shouldn't be, at least. If there's an astronaut, cosmonaut, or whatever who's in trouble, you're up there in space, in space. There's no air, so you got to help each other out. Yeah, there's all of these policies that were made to, I guess, safeguard space in the past. Unless there was some radical change, the only thing that would change, in my opinion, would be on the ground. But if it's a logical policy, there's no reason that any of that would change.
I see.
I think, like, for me, what terrifies me the most is, to what Daniel's saying, like, a lot of our interaction with policy is in relation to how it affects people on Earth. And when you have, like, in 2007, China launched an anti-satellite missile, which destroyed one of their satellites. This is kind of a show of force, saying, hey, guys, we have anti-satellite weapons. That sort of activity, though, not only sends a political message, but jeopardizes other people's, satellites in orbit. It also may lead to a new kind of arms race, because we're in a different era now. So instead of, like, we still have nuclear weapons, there's still a threat, but the new phase of warfare is information, and a lot of information revolves around satellite technology. In terms of, satellite imagery, communications, you name it. I'm sure people are developing new concepts for what they can deploy into space to either affect or increase their power down here. And that's, I think, in the short term, that's kind of what we're seeing. And like we talked about, I think two sessions ago, we're also seeing private entities come into the picture. We're seeing it's not just governments now launching anything to space or interacting with space. There are also private companies who want to get their foot out there, get their stake in it. So I think, like, there have been, because I'm looking this up a little bit right here, there have been more treaties signed since the Outer Space Treaty. As time goes on, for the moon as well. But as time evolves, so do treaties and laws, and so do our, like, application and perception of those. So, yeah. I guess I'm mostly afraid that people are going to start having, like, mini skirmishes and wars in low Earth orbit. But maybe, yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, I actually thought of the same thing. Like, in the last, I'll say, few decades, we've seen basically proxy wars, and I could kind of see space being a new proxy war, where maybe it's not we're going to this country to fight these guys to make these guys mad. It's, let's shoot these satellites. The battlefield is space. Hopefully people aren't involved, but I don't know any warfare that does not involve people. So I could see the new proxy war evolving from on the ground to space.
Even quite interesting that you guys have like, you know, quite different things. Like I think Brent is a little more concerned, and then I think Daniel is a little more of like, you know, working this like together and stuff. I mean, do you think like, you know, the concept of utopia, you know, treaties and own world, it's more of a westernized concept, especially like America, because I think it might be something that's more beneficial to you guys. So that's why you have to promote this sort of, yes, it's have to be for all, and you know, it shouldn't be us against you or whatsoever.
Go ahead,
go?
Brent.
You want me to go? All right. I was like, I have thoughts on this.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're asking me personally, I would love more cooperation. I think sustainably in the future, like that's going to have to happen. However, just given like the way governments work now, the way like the way the UN works now, depending on who's the president or leader of whatever country, and disproportionately if you're part of the Security Council, because you get special status, basically because you're allowed to have nuclear weapons, then you get a bigger say in the conversation. I think when the UN, like in the like let's just say like the past 60 years or so, the US had led a lot of the conversation there, being that we had a lot more say. But I would say due to recent economic changes and just population changes, demographics, you're seeing that like we're pulling back a bit more than we were during the Cold War, and you're seeing, you know, powers like China rise up, Russia like projecting its power as well. Europe's still there, and I would say like, you know, we're talking about the EU Space Agency, and if we're talking about the UK and France as UNSC members, then yeah, I mean there's still a conversation going there. But I would say like from what I've been seeing, at least in terms of space, in terms of policies, China's kind of doing what America did a while back, which kind of like going its own, kind of growing into its own as it grow, like as its economic and military power grow. So I think that is shifting how our conversations happen, where it's more of, hey guys, we should all work together, and people are like, oh, the US is like a lot of power and influence, so if we can get on their good side, maybe we can get more out of it, or maybe they can help us with our space program. And you might start seeing shifts of, well, like China's offering to just give us a lot of their technology and these sweet trade deals, so maybe we don't have to change our politics, or maybe we don't have to do things the way we've been doing them. So there are more options in that political space than there used to be. If you ask me, that's I think so.
Yeah, and like you were saying, it's sort of easy for the people in power who have sort of, or I should say muscle, who have used the muscle politically, to sort of say, okay, you guys need to cooperate, when, you know, they have done anything but that. So yeah, and it's interesting bringing up China, not to like single out any countries, but like, you know, China famously with their 9 dotted line. I mean, do you guys think that would happen in space? Like, okay, well, we take these asteroids. I mean, you know, to be optimistic, yes, we're going to work together. But like Brent was saying, historically, we just don't like working together as humans. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's just like different mindset as well. It's like how like each country have their own definitions of like power or the best way to go on about this. That's what it is, you know. Western societies are more about collaborations. Maybe Asian is more of I need to be the strongest and like have to lead or something.
Look what I
Actually,
find it. Yeah, go ahead. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead. Well, okay. Go for it.
I just wondering, is that make sense that some country people can allow to send anything to space without government permission? It sound is that make sense for you guys?
Are you talking about regulation of like private companies or
Yeah.
in their airspace? Yeah, you know, that's interesting, right? Because like some governments won't allow any of it unless it's government only. I would say for the US specifically because of how our society is developed and just how the military industrial complex works. You have a lot of private companies who are actually developing the technology. So they've already been putting their satellites up there for years. It just might have like a USAF logo on it because maybe the US government bought that satellite from X contractor or X rocketry company or aerospace company who was developing it, and perhaps and same with how we do communication satellites. So the U.S. government doesn't have a monopoly or control all communications. It allows other companies to kind of bid on and like make money out of those spaces, and they can compete, and we allow them to send satellites into space so that can be part of their business model. So I think it's just the way that our society is structured around sort of like capitalism and enterprise leads to this model in here, and probably also the EU versus like I actually don't know. I don't know how it would work in somewhere like China or Russia, but I assume I think in China they own a lot. The government owns most, if not all, of the enterprises that would be sending satellites up there. So while the company's name might be on it, the Chinese government is the one who controls that. I could be wrong, but I think that's societally like that's how those things work comparatively. But there is still regulation. Like I think the U.S. and the EU would regulate these countries or these companies within these countries so that they have to abide by certain rules. Because just because you're in space, like, or your satellite, your properties in space, the laws that you fall under are probably still wherever your corporation's headquartered, that sort of deal. So that's what I imagine. Yeah,
it seems like a with the ocean. Same thing with a ship on the high seas that's involved in some sort of criminal activity. Like you're saying, it's not who they're dealing with or whatever. It's where did you come from? Where are you headquartered? So probably in the future, same thing, or now, that would be what state owns this satellite.
I think because to your analogy, like the ocean, right? When you're out there, you have to sail a certain flag, and that flag is your nation state, whatever government or laws that you're governed by. So people know. I think in space, it's like I don't want to get into space junk yet because I'm going to talk about that some more. But one of the things I was reading about was for example, if you leave something up there and they ascertain that belonged to X company from X country, that is supposed to be sent back to that country, back to that owner. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So even they like still the concept of like where you come from is so important to like how law applies in these matters. So yeah.
I come from Earth.
Exactly right. But we don't have like one sovereign government on Earth. I mean, the UN is like a global governing body, but it doesn't, you know, we also have these other governing bodies, and in a way they complement and conflict. But yeah, I know, I get you. Like as time goes on, maybe, you know.
Yeah.
We're definitely not there yet.
I'm kind of curious of why you asked that question, Gik. Like, do you have like any specific like idea behind it, or your personal like thoughts on it? Why would it make sense, or why wouldn't it make sense? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Just I'm ready to go.
Would you mind if you ask me again?
So yeah, like what's the reason behind like your questions? Yeah.
I just think is the rule that anyone can send anything to space without government permission is not. I think it not make sense. If the government want to go the space economy in your country, so I think U.S. space economy are good one, and some country might learn from them. So I want to know in other people opinion, is that make sense? So I ask. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the reason behind my question.
Yeah, I think it makes the question make sense. Like sort of why can or can't just anyone shoot something up from their backyard? And I think there's a bunch of reasons why, but the common answer would also be safety. One, if there's some regulation, because at the end of the day, I think you have to trust someone, if that makes any sense, government or whoever. So if it's somewhat regulated, then you at least have some trust or some confidence that there's not some uranium going up from your neighbor, or there's not some spy satellite coming up from whoever. So yeah, regulation can be constricting, but it is also very useful for national and global safety, I think.
So I guess like to put more importance on the drafting Space Act, I think we just kind of have that news recently as well, don't we? For Thailand.
Yeah.
We're not sure, about it. Maybe it could be a discussion on another time. We do have a comment. Let me put this up. So yeah, how do you feel about the mining of resources and extraterrestrial body could affect corporations and conflict of countries involved?
That's a good question. Do you want me to go first? I don't know if...
Yes.
Sure. How do I feel about this? Since we don't have a precedent for this yet. Yeah, go ahead. Do you want to go first?
No, I'll let you go first. But one thing I was just thinking of is a good comparison could be what is happening on Earth, and then just apply that to space. Like you said, we don't have a precedent, so the Mars, the moon, it's open. Besides the moon, there's no flag on Mars. So if all of a sudden, hey, there's oil, hey, there's titanium, hey, there's gold, who gets rights to that, and how do we deal with that?
Yeah, I think what we're saying, because a lot of the stuff that we draw parallels to is Earth, right? So what happens here, we usually take with us to space. So I think about something like an extraterrestrial body or like an asteroid. Most likely, though, it would be something like the moon or Mars, something that might be a bit more, I don't know, accessible, maybe stationary is what I envision. And I feel like at first, if we're talking about it, like the discussion we had where you might have private companies in space, or you might just have some government supported entity out there, it's kind of going to be the Wild West, if you ask me. Right now, there is no true way of enforcing power in space other than maybe with some of the satellites in low Earth orbit. But until the only thing we have up there right now is an International Space Station, and that's a civilian. Or I guess I should say it's like an interagency, intergovernmental enterprise. But if somebody like let's just say like Elon Musk decided, all right, I'm just going to build like a space fleet, and I'm just going to start sending transport ships to Mars and start mining iron out of the sand or something like that. Can we stop him? I mean, we might be able to do stuff on Earth to punish him, or like maybe make him stop with the resources that we have here and the control we have here, but out there, we're basically banking on things being Earth-centric. We've got the breathable. We've got the breathable atmosphere. If you're going to be up there, you're going to have to come back here eventually. So we'll get you when you come back. But at the same time, what happens if you find a way to recycle air, or what if you mine water and split the molecules to create your own oxygen? These are probably, I don't know how distant of a future, but I imagine it's going to be real messy at first until until enough countries or governmental entities agree on some sort of kind of like mining sharing, like profit sharing model, or somebody just builds enough power and says, whatever, I'm taking over this section of like this extraterrestrial body or this part of space because I have the power. That's what I imagine at first, at least.
Yeah, that also brought up a question I was thinking, like, instead of like, could we stop Elon Musk? Should we even try to stop him? We have, okay, it's a lot easier to say you shouldn't do deforestation because the result is obvious. But what's happening now with private companies going overseas and stuff is we have tariffs. So, okay, maybe I don't know if it would be NASA, but the UN, whatever, puts tariffs on SpaceX. That could be one way to get around, like we were saying, the Wild West of space, of mining. It does seem like it could be a free-for-all when we get past the, okay, this is for science. Let's see if there was life. If there's actual valuable minerals that we can use here back on Earth, then yeah, I think there's going to be a flood of private companies besides government contractors. So instead of should we or shouldn't we, I think it's going to be like, how do we control it? If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're good points.
Yeah, so which brings us to the next comment as well, which is this.
I really like this comment because I agree with him that human like war.
What do you
I
think?
don't like.
Like,
But I
Yeah.
don't like war. Many people die from war because many people die from war, and they all someone lover. You get me?
Yeah.
I don't like war, but I think it might have space war because the resource and the question that who will in charge in space. Yeah, so I agree with him, but I don't have the idea that minimize the damage from it.
Hmm.
So, do you guys have the idea?
It's definitely quite a difficult one to just say, right?
I mean, I have some thoughts I can give. I would say like, yeah, I mean, we go to war all the time sometimes over like the most petty things, in my opinion. It could be well, like, or maybe not. It depends on who you are and why you're going to war. Maybe like we talk about tribalism. You kind of talk about in and out group. You talk about like who you perceive as part of being with you and who's against you. And I think of like, if you've got one tribe upriver, and they're taking all the fresh water that you want, and you go like, hey, leave some water for us, and they're like, well, I mean, you're not part of our tribe, so we don't care. And what happens when the tribe downriver is like, well, we're going to war with you because like we're tired of you doing that and we want our water, and then they fight it out and things happen. I'm using resources as kind of a point because that's usually why things happen. There's also ideology. You have a different idea about something, and so like maybe you're going into space and you go, hey, well, like space, we should only go out there for science. And maybe somebody else is like, well, I want to go out there for profit. I'm going to mine this thing, and this is what I'm doing. And then they disagree, and you go, well, you know what? I'm going to save space from you, so I'm going to start fighting you out there or here to prevent you from going into space. Also possible in terms of like what we can do to maybe prevent or minimize it. It's multiple things at the same time. I am a big proponent of like cultural exchange and science exchange programs. And what I mean by that is like I feel the more you work with people in close contact and share ideas and thoughts, even if you disagree, even if you argue, you tend to share a bit more value by doing that, and perhaps that would make it a bit more difficult for you to go to war with somebody who you feel like you have something in common with. Otherwise,
it's not so much that the items have value, even though they do. It's you are putting value on the other person now. It's like these people are useful. They have value. It's not so much that they sell fighter jets and I want fighter jets. It becomes like you're saying, cultural exchange. Yes, they have fighter jets, but I like their music. And then, I don't really want to fight someone with this music. I like these guys. And so that's sort of a complex web of diplomacy, but I think it has promise, especially when we're talking about international relations here. I think the scope of IR is individual, state, global. Well, now as space opens up to us, you're gonna have to add another layer of the scope of IR. Like, I don't even know what they would call that, like galactic scope. But I think many layers of how we relate to each other and how we interact are going to change.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, it make you become less ignorant about other culture, and then that help you build perspective and really, challenging you in questioning yourself whether, if let's say, whether going to war is what you really want, when there's so much beautiful cultures and people and things that we could create out there. Now that we, talking about minimizing the damage, what about, defending going to actually going to war? Like, why would it be a good thing?
Oh, you want to play devil's advocate for like
Yeah.
why would going to war be a good thing?
Yeah, why not?
Gig, do you want to go?
I have stupid answer.
No.
Armor.
I still want to hear it.
Sorry?
Armor?
Yeah.
Metaphorical or literal?
hmm I have nothing to say with it.
I don't know if it.
I have
I
no
don't-
idea.
I don't know if
I love
it exists in Thailand, but it sounds like she pled the fifth. So
Yes. Yes. Definitely pled the fifth. That happened.
In case for non-American, would you care to explain what is plead the fifth?
it means that you have a right to not say anything that could possibly incriminate you in court.
Mm.
So when you say I plead the fifth, it's like, okay, he's not saying anything else.
That's actually another good reason, is like for technological advancement. That's also could be a
war?
good
To
one.
go to war?
Yeah, so it forces, different nations to just develop a bunch of technology. I mean, you play SIFT, you know how it is.
I mean, like, that's a good point, because when you think about warfare,
Yeah.
it led to rocketry, which then led to space. So, like, you had the V2 rockets in World War II, and then, the Americans pretty much snatched up a majority of the German scientists, and the Russians took some too, and then there you go. And then you have space programs. And like you said, like, well, this is something that people thought about for war. Like, how do I get an advantage over my enemy?
Mhm.
And then it ends up being beneficial in other ways to, like, scientific endeavors and society. So, we get satellites out of it. We get space exploration. We can
That's
now
a
see interstellar bodies.
positive outcome, but I don't think that's a good reason why to go to war. But yes, it's an interesting point.
Why can't you do that without going to war? And that's also, you know what I mean? Like, our motivations.
That is a good point. That is a good point, though. Funding.
Funding.
Maybe that's why.
Or it's good for the economy.
Yes, and people are going to put loads of money into war as opposed to saving the turtles. If you're looking at it from a government perspective, in my opinion, it just seems very logical. It's like, okay, we could probably look back and figure out which instances there was probably a few wars started to get more support from certain people.
Mhm.
So I don't see it not being impossible. But still, it's better to play it safe and not go to war just for technology.
All right, before we move on to our next topic, let's do a quick quote on what do you think gonna happen in the future? Dystopia over utopia? Which one?
for the
Oh,
audience
The
or for us?
Expanse.
Sorry,
Vote for the audience or for us?
for you,
Dystopia.
for you guys, and also the audience as well. Yes, why not, right?
Yeah.
One more. What do you guys think? Are we gonna be like more like Star Trek, where everybody's like all to fought together for all mankind's? You know,
They did have some fights in Star Trek.
they
Yeah.
do. They do. But isn't like, you
Dystopia.
know, even like with Starfleet, they're always like peace and progressions.
Well, I mean, like at one point, Starfleet turns into pretty much a military organization. So, if you ask me, middle left, maybe like, because I think there's gonna be some good out there in space. Like I don't think it can't just only be horrible, like sad capitalism. I think people are gonna go out there for like, I wanna go discover what's like in this core sample in the moon, or like I want to go to Mars and try to make the soil tillable and have agriculture there. It like exploration, you know, like that whole scientific endeavor. Will there be like new forms of life out there? We don't know, but I still think we're genuinely going to keep exploring that because we keep doing it. Like we read about it in the news all the time. Of course, it's usually bacteria, but like, so it's not so exciting, but it is a life form.
Yeah.
But like politically shaping things up, I would probably say that in our near future, the Expanse is probably closer.
Yeah.
Just given how things are now, it's very uncommon that we break with how our historical patterns are and just do something completely different.
I mean, it's not entirely dystopian either. It's just
Yeah.
really realistic, but it does have that kind of sadness or you know into it.
Bleakness. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of bleak.
Our audience said dystopia.
We got one vote for
too.
dystopia.
Yeah.
Got two for
What about you,
dystopia.
Daniel?
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually, along the lines of what Brent was saying, with Starfleet, that sort of, and maybe I'm not a big enough Trekkie to understand what was going on, but it seemed like Starfleet was all encompassing. Everything went into Starfleet. Even with the new movies, you go to Academy to go to Starfleet. And so it's like the entire Earth system mechanism went into this program. But realistically, yeah, I do think the Expanse makes the most sense.
All right.
Yeah.
So we can call off these topics and then let's
Well,
move
what did
on.
you vote for, Julia?
Me, definitely dystopia. I don't think it's gonna be that.
I guess we got
Okay.
a bit more hope for the future than Daniel. This is a tiny
Like
bit.
none of us is like, yes, let's, you know, for the brighter futures and beyond.
Maybe those shows are not good examples, just because there's good and bad in both. But if you just say utopia or dystopia, I think we are right at the edge of utopia when it comes to space, because like Brent was saying, we're doing it for the reasons we should be doing it right now. Like we're going out there, we're exploring, we're trying to better life on Earth and to better our future. Now, if all of a sudden there's oil or some random thing out there, okay, it's going to turn into the Expanse, where we're going to send out the drills and the mines and everything, and there we go. Dystopia. So I could see it starting utopia and then over time evolving.
into a.
That was a very
big
diplomatic way to answer that game, but yes.
Yeah.
I do want to say that in The Expanse, like they do set out to colonize Mars at first. It's
Yeah.
just that over time, as their cultural differences grow,
Mhm.
then the aggression grows and the
Yeah.
resentment grows, and like the feeling like a colony state with like a colonial ruler grows.
Mhm.
But like yeah, I would say like, to your point, like if you perceive something of value out there, like once it's some sort of tangible value or like something that is deemed as a resource,
Mhm.
people start to claw for it. So
I mean, maybe there's going to be alien reservations on Mars. You know, we need the oil here, so you guys move over to this crater. It's not like we've never done that before. So
oh, God,
Jeez.
this is very true though. It's so true.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we can leave that for our next discussions or something. All right. I realize it's like almost an hour. We covered only like one topic. So
Yeah.
let's move over to Brent's topic, I think, which is this space junk.
Space junk.
Woohoo! Did I spell
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah, that's fine. It's
Okay,
spelled
cool.
correctly.
So
Space
a yay
junk.
or a nay
Yay or nay on what?
on space junk?
I mean, hard nay. Space junk's terrible. It's horrible. I picked this topic because I thought it's not something people really talk about or think about when they think of space. But there's a lot of junk out there, people. So space junk, as classified, I believe, by NASA, is you have junk that is both within orbit of Earth and outside of orbit of Earth, or space debris. That's more debris. Whereas orbital debris is like man-made human debris created from things like rocket parts, satellite pieces, you name it, whatever's around there. So there is about 6,000 tons of like space debris just floating out there right now. It's nuts. That's a lot of space debris, and a majority of these are only about 4 centimeters. They're pretty small. But the thing is that they travel nearly, like 18,000 miles per hour, which I think in kilometers is about maybe like 16,050. I can't remember the conversion there.
it would be more kilometers, but yeah.
Yeah, but yes, it would be more. 18,000 miles per hour though. That's like, thousands of times faster than how a bullet travels. And the thing is with space, there's no air resistance. There's nothing slowing that thing down. So we've got, satellites up there. We've got people up there at a space station. And often they have to do what they call like collision correction. So you have to pump the thrusters, move the station, because even things like flecks of paint, just little pieces of paint that are on satellites that come off, that stuff travels really fast and it starts destroying, machinery, electronics. It's a nightmare. So like, the UN does have an organization around this to advocate for regulating the amount of space junk we create, the amount of space debris. But to me, it's just crazy. Like, there are a bunch of reasons, and some of these are like, one was the satellite I talked about. It's the Fengyun, and in 2007 they launched an anti-satellite missile at it. So destroying that created even more debris. And then in 2009, a Russian spacecraft crashed with a US satellite, and that created even more. Because people, like, satellites die. Spacecraft that, like, the fuselage from one of your rocket launches just sits up there, but it's still going real fast. So I guess for me, like politically, this is something I wanted to bring up because now that we have private companies going out in there, we have more objects in space than we've ever had in the past like 10 years, and this keeps growing exponentially. What terrifies me is like all that stuff in low Earth orbit. Like there's a lot of trash there. So as we start to try to get more people up there, as we start to try to get more satellites or rovers launched to Mars or the moon or wherever we're going, this is going to be a huge problem. I mean, like this can just million. I mean, these expeditions, right? They cost millions of dollars, billions of dollars, maybe in the future, and the thing you launch into space can get completely shredded because you just created a giant trash field around getting off your planet. So, like, what can be done about this? I think that's going to be a huge space environmental issue moving forward.
Yeah.
And they tell, like, one of the policies that's already out there is if you're done with your satellite, like if it's dead, it like the thrusters, all that, like you're not going to refuel it anymore, it's too old to work, whatever. You're supposed to position it in a way that it will burn up upon re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere, because at least that way it'll be incinerated. You know, it won't just float up there with everything else. Does everyone do it? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff up there that just, it's still up there. So how do you get so much stuff up there? And like how do we even clean it up? What's that going to look like? Anywho, if you guys have any thoughts, I could give you a bit more information if you want. I thought I'd just kind of throw that out there as like a whoa moment.
Sorry.
What?
There was like little kitten behind Skik. I couldn't help it.
Oh, okay. Well.
No, it's a good talking point. I think recently Elon Musk, with his new Starship, has actually volunteered, or he's willing to use the cargo variant, which sort of opens up, and this thing can carry about 100 to 150 metric tons. So if all goes well and Starship gets developed, that it's sort of like Pac-Man, just eating up all this space trash. I think there's certain websites and stuff that you can actually track what's up there, and it is ridiculous. And I think this same thing, the solution is also dangerous, because you're sending more stuff up there in order to clean up the stuff that's up there, and if you fail, now you have double the amount of stuff up there.
Yeah.
And same thing, if you have this huge cloud of stuff and it just, the hope is that it burns up on entry, but I don't have an engineering degree, so I'm just going to guess that maybe most will, but what if it doesn't? That could land on a house, and that's a bigger problem.
Yeah. And I don't know, I constantly think about like to the cleanup bit, right? That we're talking about, like if you want to go up there, if you want to try to Pac-Man all this trash, this junk, like how risky is that? I just, because like if things are traveling at 18,000 miles per hour and you're like trying to capture that, well, how fast do you have to go, or what do you have to design to stop something like that? And to your point,
I mean,
will everything burn up? And it probably won't.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's we've seen with all the shuttles going up to the space station. I mean, it's possible to line up two things that are going that fast. But same thing, when you're going that fast and mass is no longer, well, it is an issue, but there's no gravity. So it's like if you're playing frisbee and you go to catch it and and it flies 20 more feet. Same thing could happen with space junk. maybe there is an easy answer. You just go up there and it's done. But you could push it into the space station, and that would be a big mistake. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd-
anybody ever
yeah.
heard of like was it Kessler syndromes? Where one thing's hit another things and then hit another things. So we could be having that issue.
chain reaction.
Yeah, a chain
Yeah.
reactions.
Yeah, and that's already happening up there, really, because you got to think about satellites.
Yeah.
Like how many satellites up there are colliding? How many collide a year? I think I was reading, was it something like the United States Air Force and Russian space agencies give something like 27 corrections a day or something for satellites, or the space station, just to let them know, like, all right, it's more junk coming your way. Like how sustainable is that going to be in the long term? You know what I mean? If we keep putting more stuff up there
every time as well, right?
Well, yeah, and the small pieces are actually, those are the most terrifying, because if you get something like we're not even talking about like 4 centimeters, something you can see. When you have really, really tiny, small pieces of metal that are traveling that fast, you can't protect against that. You can't, at least for some of the stuff you can track, but there's a lot of other stuff that's probably just too small to even track, and that you just take the damage, I guess, because there's no way to protect against it, really, unless you make your space station or satellite, you put Gig's armor on it, then maybe it'll survive. Yeah.
I mean, as for Thailand, Gig, do you know any company that start looking into like space GBs or dealing with space junk at all? Do we even have one?
No, I never seen any space agency in Thailand discuss, or maybe they think, but I never see the space agency that find the way to solve the space junk problem before.
I mean, when they were like collaborating with JAXA, I know that there's like Japanese company. I think Japanese is quite taking a huge lead regarding space junk, right? So, sometimes when we doing collaborated with them, there's, I mean, it's just like more of like a company, come in and then talk about what they do, rather than like, okay, Thailand gonna be thinking about how to fix or help, handle this situation, sort of things.
Yeah.
Now Thailand is all thinking about how to send the satellite first.
Yeah.
But this is something you also have to consider, right? Because like when you're going to launch a satellite, you have to track the space junk, because you got to make sure that, so like most of the junk is in low Earth orbit, right? And a lot of where the satellites are going to be, that sweet spot, it's a bit outside of that. But like you have to navigate through, like trash storm almost, to get your satellite even to where you want it to be. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up, was like a space as a limited resource. So like there's only a certain area that is ideal for satellites to circle Earth. So that in of itself is kind of also a limited resource. So how many satellites can we put in that ideal zone that we need to interact with Earth? It's like that's another thought. I think they're already like 2,300 up there or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't SpaceX just send a bunch of them up recently as well?
I think so. We've launched more things this year than I think any other year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I not a caveat, but I guess piggybacking on your point and SpaceX, like, do you see, because SpaceX has just created Starlink, which is the high-speed internet, where, providing it to places that don't usually get internet. And they're creating this constellation around, I think it's complete, around the Earth. It makes a lot of sense for them to do that to the moon and Mars if we're heading in that direction. Now, technology and whatnot is advancing to the point where you don't have to put up new satellites every so often. They just update themselves. You don't have to go up and work on them. You just hit a button and it programs itself. So perhaps this is a way to limit space junk on other, I guess the word is celestial bodies, like around the moon, around Mars. You know, if you could get to the point where the technology is advanced enough where you only need 2,000 satellites around Mars, it's like, okay, that's it. There's no reason to put anything else up there. This way, it's not like a copy and paste of Earth as far as space junk is concerned.
Yeah, and I think as time moves on, like you said, like the automation, the technology is getting better. We might even be able to, who knows, reuse. I think a lot of the stuff though that we build, it's not self-sustaining. It's up there for X lifetime, and then we already build it in to know it's only going to be good for 20 years until either the technology becomes obsolete or it just can't stay up there due to resources. But I think. Yeah, like that's something I haven't even really contemplated about. Like once we start setting up satellites around Mars, we're probably already doing it, but or the moon. But in terms of like internet communication, since our society is still based here, I think that area where the satellites are, that green zone, for a lack of better term, is probably going to be a sweet spot that everyone wants to get into, because like, what makes your internet fast? What makes your phone calls fast? What routes your communication the best? They're like, oh, this specific area in this orbit is like the most ideal. So if you put something on the moon, unless the technology got like real good, there's going to be some sort of lag time, some delay. Yeah. And same with Mars. You know, it's even further. And then I just think about, like, again, here comes like the more negative part of what happens when people want to compete for that space. You know, if like China gets tired of like there are too many satellites up there, just rocket it. You know, and then like I'm just going to put my satellites there, even though it created more junk. But you know, my point being is like, what happens when that gets full? Are people going to start fighting over that as a limited resource? Is that going to create even more junk?
Well, this is also getting into more. I don't even know if this word exists, but like ethical colonization. Okay, let's say NASA, let's say SpaceX. I'll go with NASA and SpaceX. Let's say they're doing the right thing. And it's like, okay, we know you're doing the right thing for the right reasons. You better get there first. You know, if there's already a constellation of Starlink around Mars, it's like, okay, it's free to use. China, if you're there, use Starlink. You know, India, if you're there, use Starlink. It's free internet. You guys don't have to send any other space junk up there. Yeah, maybe I just made up that word. Ethical colonization.
Yeah.
Well, pretty sure it's the first
just
time
look
I've
at the
heard it.
British Empire.
I don't think they were thinking about ethics when that happened.
Sorry.
You're fine. I just to that point though, I'm also thinking like the counter argument for one of them would be, well, trust, right?
Yeah.
Like I have to trust that Starlink is like gonna handle my data in a way that I want it to. So if they're like, I don't trust space, like if I'm China and I'm like, I'm about to send some like top secret military intel
Mhm.
through that I like about something I found on Mars, I probably don't want to use Starlink. Like I don't want this third party company that I don't trust to have this information.
And
So
I
I'm just
mean,
thinking
Or
they'll be
that.
like, no, it's my own satellite. It's going up there.
would that be more monopolizing the thing as well? To like,
Yeah, true. Yeah,
you
that
know,
too.
you also wanted to avoid that, so
It depends
And
on how you perceive that monopoly, but yeah.
I also know it's still in its infancy, I guess you could say. So I don't know how. I don't know if anyone has ever tried hacking a Starlink, but I know there's because each Starlink satellite, like most satellites, have little motors, so they can move around. Engines, I guess, is the proper term. So I believe with the recent unrest in Myanmar, there was an agreement between the U.S. government and SpaceX to move Starlink over there to help give internet access to the people in Myanmar. So again, now you're just from the outside, that sounds like a good reason. But you're also adding government behind that. So again, you have to trust someone, but it raises questions.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
All right.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. We could probably get to another topic if you guys are done talking about junk. I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was interesting.
No, it
But I hope
definitely is, especially the things that Daniel brought up on the what you just said about trusting someone. It's like, yeah, it's always good to put like decorations on things, but based on that person is whether it's government or not. It's like, how much can we trust it? Like, how like let's say example for us Thai, right? We just have to trust our government enough for them to make all the right decisions, or making a policy that not only monopolizing but also encourages new technologies or starts up or so on.
if you don't trust it, space junk.
Or we have to create the system that we can trust.
Mhm.
If we can trust people, we might can trust the system.
Yeah, but isn't like talking about philosophically, isn't like everything start off always like with the good intentions, and at the end of the day it's either turn really was it capitalist, or it's like, yes, we all in this together, all the nations making policies about things, and then somewhere along the line
that sounds very nice.
I don't think everything starts off with good intentions. That's my opinion.
Jeez.
I'm not gonna go into that though. So, that's whatever you think.
Gonna play the fifth now.
Yeah, gonna plead the fifth.
All right, so let's move on to Daniel's, right? Daniel proposed a few topics that are really interesting. So which one do you want to
Possibly
go
interesting.
first? Yeah.
I guess we might as well just go down the list.
Okay.
Yeah. So for criminal justice, it was more of same thing, since we're in uncharted territory now. What happens when it comes to space? If someone breaks, well, there has to be a law, but if someone breaks the law in space, is it the scenario where they have to come back to Earth to face trial? And then you have to, I was thinking of punishment, and sort of there can't be sort of a reciprocity between the act and the punishment, because you need colonists, you need miners. You can't just, okay, this guy cut his hose and the guy died. You can't just kill this guy because you need more minerals. You have to sustain the colony, whatever. So it sort of raises the question, like, I guess as a precedent, what needs to happen or what has happened in order to create a criminal justice system in outer space?
I mean, we can always put them in labor camps.
That's was also a thought. Do we convert the moon into a penal colony? Like, okay, well, you can either spend, do this, or 5 years mining whatever there is on the moon. You get air, which is not included on Earth. You get your own air, water, and a place to sleep. So, these are options. But it seems very far down the road. But it's also something that needs to be looked at, I think. So it's not like, well, this just happened, I don't know what to do. Do we look back on, when different countries were founded, like what was the law in, when America was founded, what was the colonial law? Were there some certain things that we weren't allowed to do, certain things that we were allowed to do? And of course, certain things led to our independence. But, it's also a good way to find out what to avoid when we're thinking about these things as far as laws and ways to act, as far as the justice system. When you're conquering a new world, we could say, we have 10,000 plus years of human history to look back on.
Yeah.
So maybe we can apply that to Mars. That was, yeah.
What do you guys think about how the British do the colonization? Sending a bunch of criminals to places, and you're talking about doing it like that.
You're also bringing up ethical criminal justice. Is it ethical to send someone up to the moon? If someone has to work on a road for 2 years, okay, if they stop, they can still breathe. Up in the moon, it's like, well, that the risk is very great that you can lose prisoners. And then you have to figure out, is that a reasonable punishment, or is that excessive? Just by the nature of where you're sending these people.
I mean, if they committed a crimes like outer space, still, are we gonna send them somewhere, or some some place still? So it's potentially ended up being the same, right? Or am I missing some point here?
Well, another thing that we have to look at, because it is space, it's very expensive to get people up there. Yeah. And I'm going to imagine it's very expensive to get people back. I mean, I don't know how much, from the ISS, you just fall. And that's basically how you get back to Earth. I'm sure that's included in the price, but, if you're living on the moon and they're like, well, you're going back to Earth, they have to launch you off the moon. So that's going to cost, that's an unintended cost. So the most logical thing for me is that you have a system in place on wherever you are. I don't know if there's anything on the ISS. Do they just tie someone up until their mission's done, or what? You know. But now we're looking at. Go ahead, Brent.
No, I was just wondering if there's ever been a crime on the ISS.
Actually, it was sort of, I think,
You know what I mean?
was it Annie McCrane, right? I think she was accused of accessing was it bank account of her like ex-wife, and then when she returned it back to Earth, and then she had to went through a trial, which she found not guilty, by the way. I think. I hope I'm not wrong about that.
So that's
Oh,
an
yeah, I've heard about
interesting.
this one. I heard about
Yeah.
this lady. Yeah.
But that is a crime. She was on the ISS, but the crime happened on Earth.
Ah,
I think.
you think
It was internet, I guess. I don't know legally where it occurred. But as far as like, a Russian punches the Japanese guy, I don't know if that's ever happened. Maybe it does happen, and they have their own justice system up there, and they're like, okay, no food today, go to bed. I don't know. I don't know what happens.
I don't know with IR, like international relations. How do people get punished, like diplomats and stuff?
For international relations.
Yeah.
Well,
Relocation?
no. Depends on the person's status, right? So, like, if we're talking about a foreign diplomat, they usually have immunity in wherever they're representing, and then if they do something that's punishable, then they face that back in wherever they're representing. Usually, that's how that works for their status. Now, if you are a foreign national and you don't have diplomatic status and you're in a country and you do something wrong, you fall under their laws, whatever those are. Unless somehow you make it to your embassy and then they send you back, and then they decide, if the embassy decides to try you for whatever crimes in your home country, then maybe. Or they work together, and perhaps, like, because there are cases like in the Philippines where a sailor may murder someone, while they're out in the town, and this has happened enough to a point where it's documented. But then, so they might go back to their home country or host country, or no, the home country, because host country is the other one. And maybe that government will say, like, nope, they're protected under our laws, and we will try them accordingly. Or maybe if the home country thinks it's so bad, or there's like maybe some sort of political angle, they will extradite them. So they will send them back to that host country for punishment. So it really depends on, there's like a lot of haggling that's kind of done in a way. I'd also say, like, yeah, to Daniel's point, what laws or what rules do people agree to before they even go? So, like, I like to think that is a conversation that happens before you're even in space. Be it on a ship where, like, if you're a private company, well, there are company policies and there are laws that govern those policies. And so, like, if you violate a crime, or like you violate the law, whatever that is, you're most likely going to have to face that whenever you get back to whatever home country there is. In space, I don't know, because that's another thing too. Like, let's say hypothetically we set up let's just say we set up a research center or a facility on the moon. How does that work? Is it going to be governed by something like how we do in Antarctica, where, like, no one really owns it, but it's a shared entity, sort of like the ISS kind of is, and perhaps there are treaties in place that, like, have stipulations of what happens in certain cases, or maybe it says you're tried when you get back to your home country because that's what all the countries here agreed on. Or is it something like that's not a thing? What if it's just a private entity decided, well, we're gonna just set up a research center here? How's that governed? If a government doesn't have any say, do they just make rules and laws there? Yeah, how does that even work?
I'm sure it also depends on the nature of the crime. But also not only that, okay, let's say we take an airline. You have a unruly passenger who's breaking a policy they have or a rule they have. They have certain procedures that they do. So you would have to. It also depends on the nature of where the crime is occurring, and what vehicle or building it is. If it is a rocket ship, if it's the space station, or if it's a ground-based structure, if it's a building, perhaps the law changes, because it's a building. It's not going anywhere. You can't just send someone back to the port of entry. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think because speaking of airports and like how that kind of works, right? Because like so like if you're in an airport and you commit a crime, typically that host country is going to decide what to do with you. Now, if you're on the airplane and you commit a crime, it might depend on whose airspace you're in.
Yeah.
And then maybe law, like international law, says, well, if you're in this airspace, then this country's laws apply. I feel like there's gonna be some sort of give and take. And for these sorts of things that we're discussing right now on Earth, there have already been laws applied in case law, like that something was ruled this way in space. And I'm curious to see like your idea of like having a penal colony on the moon. Like, how is that even going to work, or how would that turn out? What if the crime was murder? Like, let's just say it's an extreme hard crime.
Mm-hmm.
Would you, one, like, want some retribution law in line for this person because they killed somebody, or would you want, like you said, would you want to reuse them as like they're still a resource in space and they can still contribute to society by mining? Well, what if like maybe they don't fit the mental bill for it and they're just gonna keep killing miners? Like that, I like whatever. I'm gonna keep cutting hoses left and right.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be a corporal punishment for this person? Is there gonna be a death penalty? Are you just gonna space them? I don't know. Like that's also the ethical point, right? Where like, is it ethical to do that? Does the punishment fit the crime? And I think a lot of it's gonna like deal with who gets this, like who's running that facility, or like what culture they come from, what values they have.
Maybe you can ask Gig, since you wanted to be the leader of a new world.
Yeah, Gig. How would you punish people in space for crimes? Or maybe not punish, but how would you rule your space colony?
Send food for me. Send everything to me so I can live happily. And you guys just working.
That's not punishment. What if I committed a crime on your planet?
I will send. Oh no, I can send you to other planet.
What?
Because
what if Daniel owns other planet?
Okay, I will send him to some dwarf planet. It's stupid idea. It's just for fun.
A dwarf planet? You're just gonna send me to like some random planet?
Yeah,
What if
like
Julia
dwarf-
owns the other 20 planets?
This. Sorry. Go ahead, Gig.
Yeah. Go on.
It's almost like our space junk talk. What do we do with trash? What do we do with? No, like if you think of, I think there's like we pay the Philippines like $3 billion to take our trash every year.
Is that ethical?
it's we're helping the Philippine people. We're giving them money.
We're also giving them trash.
Hey, but we're giving them money. So,
So wait,
if Brent is a killer on Gig's planet,
I'm getting
and
sent to your planet.
He's not gonna be a killer. It's only officially
on-
he's gonna be a slave.
only if Gig pays me, I'll accept you if she pays me.
What if she just puts me in a pod and fires me at your planet?
I might.
Is that a preemptive strike?
Now you're at war because you sent me to your planet and I'm a prisoner.
How do you feel knowing that you might be like the person that potentially a part of, you know, this war thing?
So I stole your food. You shot me at his planet because you didn't want to deal with me. Daniel's
I
unhappy.
can charge you, remember? Because I can charge you, I can kill you because I want your wish.
Yes.
P. Julia wish too. So
I
it's
have, yeah.
difficult for me to think about it.
Are you following up, Daniel, about the more wishes stuff? It's an inside joke because our first
Oh, yeah. He wasn't there for
episode, I think we were asked by the audience, right? About like if we were to go off world or other planet, is like what are the 3 wishes? And I think Brent asked for like more wishes. So Gig was like, one of her wishes is like, I wanted to like take Brent wishes. So technically she can kill him.
I see.
First
He
time,
has.
I'm kind of her genie.
You have wish immunity.
Exactly. But I can't wish myself out of the situation because she controls all my wishes. So, like, how does that work?
Oh man.
I guess I'm getting sent to your planet.
Shall we move on to other topic? But I also noticed that it's like an hour and a half too. So how you guys feeling?
I'm doing all right. I
How
think
you
Wish
feeling,
would wish.
Gig? Are you there, sis?
Earth 2 gig, right?
Yes.
I'm still here.
just hang in there. 2 more
I just
topic.
I just woke up, but I think it's Saturday.
Yeah.
It's okay.
No chemo.
All right. So what was the next one? Roles and future potential for USSF.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but the United States has created a new branch of the military called the U.S. Space Force. They have a little less than 5,000 people right now.
Yeah.
And initially what they're doing basically is to take the space-related objectives or jobs from the Air Force. And but it's also interesting if you look up, because not only are they having there's about 6 Air Force jobs that were related to space. And like Brent was saying, with moving satellites, that was your only job, operating spacecraft and satellites and geopositioning, things like that. So because it's so new, they're not very hungry for jobs. They're sort of taking people who have certain skill sets and they're building the force as they go, as they develop jobs. But some of the qualities that they're looking for sort of signal their future plans,
Mhm.
because they're not just looking at the Air Force, they're looking at all the other branches. And they're putting a lot of priority on special forces personnel,
Mhm.
intelligence personnel, cyber personnel, and medical personnel. And what this has to do with is sort of the way the country and the world is going, sort of heading towards space. Not necessarily that we're just going to start punching aliens, because we're not there yet.
I mean, first we
But-
have to change the uniform because camels in space. I'm not sure if that's gonna work.
I don't know.
Like, how is this
you-
make sense? Tell me.
Well, you know,
Starship.
that's for the ground. You know, they change it when they get into space.
Mhm.
Yeah, little stars and everything.
Yeah.
Eagle through the fishbowl.
You want to talk a little
Yeah.
bit about the logo because it does look like something.
The logo.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yes.
it totally does.
I know, right?
They know what they're doing.
I share fun worst photos here.
You found worse ones? Oh yeah.
Where did I get this one from?
Oh man.
So yeah, is this something? Is the US, was it USF, right? Gonna follow the Starfleet path?
Well, I think both Star Trek. I think all of these organizations sort of had the same perspective. Even if you look at, or if you, I should say, listen to the Space Force song,
There's
to
a
the
song.
moon.
They have a song?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was
it's kind of
thinking, too.
cool,
Can we
actually.
put that up? Can we put that up and then we can have a reaction?
Okay.
Wait. What's the name?
I think it's just called Space Force song.
Okay. Space Force song. I'm afraid to like get on the wrong one. So which one is this? The United States Space Force anthem, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has like a little flag in the background.
Is it this one? Can you see it? Oh wait, shoot. Sorry.
I'm actually looking at Space Force careers.
Is this? Are you guys ready? It's 4 minutes and 26 seconds.
You could just play the beginning. You don't have to play the whole thing.
Is it this one, right? Am I right?
I think so, yes.
Oh my god.
I don't hear the sound to it, though.
Can you not?
No.
Oh shoot. Okay, how do I work it this up?
Oh man.
Why is it not coming through though?
Space Force anthem. That's not something I thought I'd ever be looking up.
Who will
Well,
sing this song?
Can somebody
There-
share
there-
that from the screen? I'm not sure why mine is not working.
Well, you can place a local video, right? Yeah. You never mind. You'd have to. Not quite sure how to do that. Not on here.
No. Hmm.
You can just put the link in there for everyone, maybe.
Oh yeah, wait, okay. Oh no. Maybe talk about like other stuff first and I'll sort this one out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I guess I sort of explained what the Space Force is and where it's going, and sort of I kind of see the role of the Space Force as sharing the same role as the US Navy, in that the Navy their main job is to promote democracy and ensure freedom of the seas. So that's why you see them going into certain places. They're not sort of cliche saying colonizing, but they're not trying to start any wars, but they just want to make sure that free passage is maintained. And this, I think, is sort of tied back into our first talking point. So if, we develop going into the moon and Mars and whatnot, and who gets what part of what, I can see the Space Force occupying a role that helps ensure that it's not one person over the other, that you have free space travel. So that's what I see happening. Again, we have a lot of people in the US saying, why is it America's job to police the world? Well, here we go again in space. So I see pros and cons, but I also see the US is kind of set up for that, because we already have this Space Force established and we're developing it. At least that's my expectation of its role in the future.
I mean, of course, it has to be America because, from watching all the movies, when the aliens attack, it's always the US,
Or Japan.
Oh, yeah, that too, yes. All right, I think I worked out the video thing, so would you guys like to see?
Yeah, we'll take a look at Space Anthem.
Let me know if you could...
yeah, we can hear it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Looks like this, yes. I hope it's the right one.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
It's definitely
So wait, is this
Is official?
official or is this a fan thing?
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
I believe the video is not.
Now the time has
The
come
video
to write the
sort of
next
goes in-
great chapter
You could probably stop the video.
in the history of
Yeah. It's so.
Yeah.
God.
Part of me
Wow.
felt like I was listening to like Final Fantasy music with Battlestar Galactica music.
Yes. Yes.
It's kind of catchy. though.
Interesting.
So what's the story with this song again?
Well, each branch in the military has their own song, and it's just interesting. I think there was a point that I was trying to make. Well, they say to the moon, to Mars, to the stars, and beyond. And so it kind of shows that it's a very forward-looking branch. And I think that comes just because it's so young. All the other branches are looking back into their past, what they've done, where this song and this branch is looking into what they're about to do or what they're going to do.
Wow.
Yes.
Just wow.
I think it's bold because like we were talking about like the USSF's mission, and I think you might be onto something there with like keeping sea lanes of communication and like making sure that like things are enforced out there. Like somebody's got to do it. Is everyone going to agree with that? We'll see.
I mean, it kind of had me at Defender of the Earth. I'm like,
Defender of the Earth. Yeah, that's what I think. That's where I was like, man.
It's like fire, air.
Yeah, Captain Planet's here. Except Captain Planet, in the form of USSF, isn't here to clean up the space junk. So
He makes space junk.
You make the space junk. That's interesting though. I didn't even if they have a song.
Thank you.
I don't know how
Dan.
I feel about that. I don't know how I felt about that video.
Well,
yeah, sorry.
I believe
don't
that
know
video is.
what should I feel about that video.
I think me and Kik were just like,
There's a very nice video where it's just the flag and their logo, and them singing. This sort of went into them making the song and things like that. So
The making of the song,
I don't know
basically.
if
and
that
like
would make any
when-
difference, Daniel. I mean, it does make me feel like it's straight out like 90s, like really bad, like sci-fi theme.
It reminded me of the making of Battlestar Galactica's music. I'm not even joking. When I look back on videos of that, I was like, this feels very familiar.
No offense when I say bad, but you know what I mean. It's like I'm actually watching like a show, like this friend said.
Yeah.
I mean, in one sense, it's a good recruiting tool. Maybe.
So what, so American, which is like, I heard this. I feel like being American today. I'm just gonna join Space Force. Is that how you get your interest?
That's how some people join.
You're
It
joining
is.
Space Force.
Some people, yeah, they're like.
Potentially.
Well, I mean, think about it though. Like, if you can join enlisted, and they will train you to go into space, and you don't have to be an astronaut, or I mean, like, you don't have to go through the same rigorous sort of like competition, recruiting, selection cycle as maybe an astronaut. Because how many people go to the space station? But how many people are in Space Force? And how many of them are going to space? Like, is the number bigger? And you're like, my chances of getting up there. I mean, granted, you probably have to be a pilot to get up there because of the training, but like, you can do a bunch of stuff.
I always thought if like instead of an M16, do they give you like a telescope for basic training? But I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. No, officially, if you right now join the Space Force, you have to go through Air Force basic training.
Yeah.
But you wear a Space Force
Batch.
name tag, yeah.
So Space Force a branch of the USAF? Or?
Yeah, it's a department of the Air Force, much like the Marines are a department of the Navy.
Okay, yeah, there you go. I was going to say that makes a bit more sense to me because that's traditionally who was in space anyways, or doing that list. Yeah,
right.
So, that's so funny. Like, yeah, but yeah, I know I could totally see people joining up, because of recruitment material like that. Although it is what's interesting to me though is something like that is different than your traditional. Like when you see like recruitment videos for the Navy or the Marines or the Army, it's like always a soldier, and then you'll hear the music, and it'll like cut to action shots of it. We had a few there, but a lot of this was like CG, and it's like more the concept of being out there than like. And there's somebody with a gun in like defense.
Well, I don't necessarily think that the video was official.
Yeah.
But perhaps the song was. The video is more of how they made the song.
It's from Voice of Freedom's music, so.
I just think like the elements would be different than your typical recruiting video.
Yeah.
Right, and I think from a leadership point of view, the people that you want to attract are also different.
Yep.
If you've seen the Marine videos, it's an awesome action movie, and it's like, maybe I want to do that. But then you look at Air Force videos or Space Force videos, and it's people with glasses and hard hats, and they're looking at screens, and it's a different sort of audience that they're trying to reach.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also you wanted to build that sort of mentalities, of going into space as well, right? So I think music is definitely a really important, key.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say is by Daniel's definition of the target recruitment market for this, when are the three of you joining Space Force? Because you have glasses and you're looking at a screen right now.
Maybe when I move? Oh my God,
man.
you're like, hey Dad, so I'm joining Space Force.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he will be proud because I've talked about joining like an army once, and he was like, yeah, cool, do it.
Space
and I was
Force,
like,
go
look
for it.
at me, like I probably like flew when the wind blows, like.
You get through basic Air Force training, and they'll shoot you to the moon.
Daniel, when you gonna have your basic training?
I don't know yet. When I was going to my recruiter, he asked me, "Are you joining Space Force? Are you joining Air Force?" Because it's the same process, but sort of the jobs are separated now. And he suggested to go into Air Force because it's such a like you said, there's basically only 6 jobs that the Space Force has right now. And as they build it, they're going to open up more. So the chances are better to join the Air Force and then down the road do a transfer into Space Force if there's an interesting job. So.
And yeah, they'd probably route you internally because that's usually how those positions work. Yeah.
Right.
I didn't actually know you're interested. That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So my plan is to have Daniel go through it first, and then I'll be like, hey, taking notes.
I'm on this planet. Gig sent me here. How do I get off?
Don't worry, Daniel. I'll wish you back.
Yes.
But can you
Still keeper of the wishes.
So?
She doesn't have to know about this one.
Okay.
Oh no, they're conspiring something behind your gig?
We can solve everything with the wish. So we don't have to discuss anything. Just ask Daniel to wish.
It always comes back to me, huh?
Yeah, it does. You're gonna have to make that wish.
You look like you're the most sensible one.
Yeah, we know I'm
Yeah.
not.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's cool.
What next? What next?
Oh,
I mean,
Anybody want to talk anything about like Space Force?
I mean, like, I feel like Daniel's probably got a font of information now, because I didn't even know that was like a thing for you, and this is.
oh yeah.
Now I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. If you do it, I'm definitely curious as to how that's gonna pan out. Like, if you join Space Force. So.
Yeah. It's almost sort of a novelty thing, you know. So a lot of people don't really know about it. There hasn't really been too much jokes about it as much as I anticipated. So it's like, all right, it's happening. But yeah, if I'm totally dialing you guys up if I go in. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it would definitely make a great podcast topic. Whatever you're cleared to talk to us about, you know.
Yeah.
It have to be in more formal setting, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Formal. This is my formal. You shake your head. I'm trying to think of, like, if I have more questions about Space Force now. So seeing it as, well, to me it's still interesting because it's like you told us about, like, sort of like, you know, democracy and kind of like keeping, like, lanes of communication open. It's still a military organization though, and what I find interesting though is like going back to the Outer Space Treaty, right, and the kind of the evolution since then. Will it be a military organization in space? And if so, what are the implications for that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it is part of the Department of Defense. So yes, it's military. I mean, yeah, I see it as it's operating as a military organization in space, or at least jobs related to space. And so yeah, I think that's why I you know, because everything sort of comes back to Earth, figuratively speaking. So if we look at the Navy and what the Navy does, you know, when we dispatch whatever fleet into certain areas, it's really not to, like, we don't really want to fight people. We just want to make sure that trade isn't shut off in a certain part of the world. You know, the sea remains open. So I can see that being the main purpose as things develop in space of the Space Force. You know, make sure, I guess, everyone stays in their lane, so to speak.
Like cyber securities and things like that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't, you know, entirely, you know, associate with just like being out there in space, but also
Right.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of so they have like 5 competencies: space security, combat power projection, space mobility and logistics, information mobility, space domain awareness. So I don't know if you guys have heard this, but I believe it was the Air Force, and now the Space Force, but they're very interested in Starship, Elon Musk's new spaceship, because you can transport 100 tons of equipment, and I'll just say warheads for argument's sake, anywhere on the planet within an hour. So, you know, if you have a 2,000-pound bomb, you know, that's 1 ton. If you have something that can hold 150 tons, and you can send it anywhere in the world in an hour, that's I don't know how it's called in game theory or whatever, but that's a big advantage diplomatically. So, and same thing, they are actively tracking everything that goes up, everything that is up, and that sort of played into the combat power projection, because when you look at like different states and what puts America militarily above everyone else is force projection. Like how far can our military reach? It's not, that's why we don't really have the biggest standing army, but we do have the greatest force projection. And now if you add space, it also, it definitely doesn't level the playing field, but it does change it.
I was just like, while we were talking about this, I was also just looking up what different countries also have space forces. Actually, quite a few, which I find interesting. Like Russia has had space forces since '92, apparently, as an organization. Yeah. People's Liberation Army for China is pretty new. 2015 is when they founded that. So it's just, to me, it's interesting that like some of these branches already existed. I'm pretty sure before we had United States Space Force, the Air Force had some sort of branch that was founded in order to maintain space. But
technically, if you look up Space Force, they say that it started in the Army Air Force back during the Cold War. So it was a division of the Army that dealt with space.
Yeah, so I think it's just evolved, right? So now it's become a different department, but it's interesting.
Same job, different flag, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Just got a rebranding once in a while.
Yes. New paint on the planes.
What about Thailand, Gig? I mean, we invest a lot of money into, warfare stuff. You think we're gonna have a space force of our own?
I'm not sure we're gonna fight with, and I'm not sure who wanna fight with us. For what? They fight with Thailand for what? Why they have to invest in their warfare to fight with us to get something? And my second opinion is, if we have a war, if it really happen, we might not win. Our technology is lower from everyone in the world.
I mean, but let's
I
say
just,
yeah, sorry.
I should say that in this town. Should I say that?
Should you say what?
What she just said.
What I just said.
No, but I mean, it's like, yeah, it's a good questions, but you with diplomacy and stuff, you don't go to war and expecting your country to win by fighting on your own. You need your allies. So yeah, maybe we're not that advanced in technology or warfare, but we have friends. We just need to know which friends is it,
We think we are friends with China, but we don't know what they think about us.
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes
if Thailand had, I believe it was called durian diplomacy with China.
Diplomacy?
Durian and ข้าวเหนียวมะม่วง mango stick.
But I forgot what it was, but it was actually called durian diplomacy. and the Chinese love durian. And a diplomatic settlement was reached by a trade in durian with Thailand.
Wow.
So that's the reason.
Verifying, Brent.
Durian.
Yeah, I am very
Driving
much. No, it's
them
cool. It's interesting to me. So
Yeah.
Like, hey, you want some nice durian? But I don't know. I feel like China could probably make everything now.
Yeah.
make durian, grow it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, like they could
Yeah.
develop a technology for like farming to the point that they don't need us anymore. We can't supply them durian anymore.
Well, I think like the other thing though for a space program, right, it's not just so like the military might like I don't know if the Thai military, if they're gonna have space forces, if they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna fight people. But what I'm trying to say is it might be about prestige. So like while you might not be like planning on having like a space strategy in terms of hey, we'll also have a SpaceX esque shuttle that will transport our weaponry to like neighboring base. Like it might just be, oh, we have a space program, so we can be involved. Like maybe we will go
because
into
it
like
looks
a
good.
military partnership. Yeah, it'll look good. Maybe because I think about like why countries join NATO, and it's sort of like collective. You'll put in. It's not just like for collective defense, but it's also for prestige, because it might also net you other things for trade, or it might get you some diplomatic points.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, Thailand's like investing in like space communications technology that we'd like to partner with them with.
I think
and you're
we
like,
are. I think we just sent not long ago. We just sent a satellite, military satellite. I have no deeper information on it as well, but that's what we did. So
and maybe something like, hey, your military partner is like, I'd be interested in maybe
from my
collecting some of your data.
observations, right, going like to Space Week and all of that, maybe a year ago, almost 2 years ago, I do see a lot of military joining in conference and stuff. So I'm sure that they're working on something.
Yeah.
Just not exactly sure. I mean,
you also have to look at the role of military, not the role of military, but the perspective of the military. You as a military organization, you need to be very forward thinking. Just when it comes to warfare, you need to be as advanced as possible, or have as many people as you can. But because we're not China or North Korea, it pays more in strategy for these companies, these organizations to be as progressive in their interests and how they develop technologies and innovation is the word I was looking for.
Yeah,
innovation. So
yeah, I mean, you think about who's in, like, for example, gig, like you think about people who are in space research in Thailand. I'm sure the military is interested in people who are technical and innovative. There's like, regardless of, well, I shouldn't say regardless what they're doing, but the fact that they are focusing in this field might mean strategically you'd be a good asset for the military.
Right. And it's not just combat.
Yeah.
It's a
but
support.
it's a little sensitive to talk about the whole dynamic or the system of like the military or just Thai government in general. It just, as for now, it's so difficult for us just to see a clear visions of it. And we're not talking about on paper. We're talking about like to actually push through with it. And then by the time that they do that, is it progressive? Let's just say that. This is my opinion.
So Thai people don't know what government thinking in this time because they is not clear which position they want the country to be in the space economy.
Mhm.
So
They might not know.
yeah,
That's,
don't know.
that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Well, same thing. Because it is, like Brent was saying, it's such a new field that even governments don't really know how they would fit in this space age.
I think of it like when things trend, right? Like technology trends, or so I think if from a military standpoint, I'm not, I'm a civilian, but point being is like if I'm in the military and I see people forming strategies and dedicating money and resources towards space, then I'm probably going to start thinking to myself, oh, there might be something to this whole space thing in terms of strategy. So maybe we should do the same, regardless of what if you might not have a clear goal there, but you also don't want to be left behind and whatever might come of it.
Mhm.
So you might put resources towards it. You might start exploring it, give talks, gauge interest in your own community and society to see, well, what do our people think about us maybe like setting up a sort of satellite research partnership deal with China or the US, or because like they're up there,
Yeah.
and maybe that's just kind of where you go, because you don't want to be completely left behind in the space if things do develop. You want to reap those benefits. So
And like you're saying, it is if you see it as an investment, let's say, I don't know if I can say Thailand because I know you guys passed the Space Act, but let's just say if you're a government and you're looking at space as an investment, but you're not sure if it's a trend, like Brent is saying.
Yeah.
So same thing how we have SpaceX here. There's a lot of people watching SpaceX. We have a lot of fans. I'm a fan. I want them to be successful. I want it to develop. But people who have actual stake in government procedure, in the economy, they're watching it, trying to see what's going to happen. So, and not just SpaceX. I think if you're a developing country, you're probably watching this like, is this anything? I mean, there's a lot of talk, but what's happening? So besides the cool factor, like, okay, let me join because it looks cool, they're probably trying to weigh the pros and cons. Why get involved? In my opinion.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely a massive challenge because not only that the government also have to be aware of how space economy could be beneficial, but also to educate like a majority of Thai people to actually understand what space is all about. And we're having quite a difficult times right now, where it's what's deemed to be necessary must come first, then something that could be far-fetched as a space explorations. It's just a lot of issues, and also cultural as well, right? Cultural, it's the way when I'm talking about culture, it's like the way, the mentality, the mindset, not only the embody of like the government, but the people inside of the government. What kind of perspective do they have? How progressive it is? Because I'm positive that we have so many wonderful scientists, Thai scientists, who are willing to push forward and have like all kinds of innovations and technology that they're developing or already developed. But at the end of the day, if they propose it and then the people inside the government, whatever individual that might be, just be like, nah, but I want it this way. Like, the structural, the cultural way of how we run things, that could prevent a lot of things from going forward. that's just like the concern for us, because with the current Space Acts, I read it briefly. It do raise a lot of concern. I think we're gonna build another organizations, right? New board members, just mainly just managing this space economy thing or industry. And then it's like so much power into one organizations, right? So everything you're going to do, you have to go through them. What if whatever visions they have in their mind is not the same, right? If they doesn't see it as important, they could just be like, we don't want you to do that, and they could just reject us, you know. So yeah, regarding Thailand, it just sorry.
No, no, I interrupted you, so I'm sorry. I remember when I was studying for my master's in Thailand, we took we looked a lot at ASEAN, and I forgot who the secretariat was at the time, but he said that development is always a higher priority than human rights. And me coming from the West, I'm like, you know, that's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You know, how can you, you know, it should be the other way around, and you develop through human rights. So I mean, not to like say any developing country is like a test subject, but from a student of political science, I think it would be interesting to see how a space program develops with the two, you know, Western versus Eastern mentalities. You know, just like you're saying, culture is a big difference. You guys might prioritize things different than Brent and I do. But maybe we prioritize the same things, and on paper we say different things just because our history or your history. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's, you know, what example, maybe for Asia, we do prioritize like unity, but it's as like one solid things. But maybe Westerner, it's more of a individuals, and then you guys go from there, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it's like by force or more of a
right. Yeah, I think I understand. Yeah. I know much of Asia, you know, sort of started with tribalism, and then that sort of developed into, okay, this kingdom wanted this and this kingdom wanted that, and you know, so our development sort of took two different roads, I guess. But we're here in the same time and dealing with the same issues. So it's sort of interesting to see the double, because you also have, like in the last session, Pee Wee Watt was talking about UAE. You know, now you're adding the Arab culture into space. And so we can look at it as possibly, is space an equalizer to all things? Or does culture play a really important role? You know, are we all getting to Mars and we all drive the same robots? Or that's a nice cat. You know, is culture such a big thing that we can't escape? That's the point I was making.
So maybe we can talk about it, you know, more later as well. I thought it's so much to talk about, especially.
Yeah, it's a heavy
high
topic,
politics.
but
It's
it's good. I've been quiet because I've been so interested in what you guys are saying.
Yeah,
So like, I don't want
yeah, it's Thai politics is a whole new level of things.
It'll be different next year.
Hopefully.
That was a joke. That was a
But
joke.
but yeah,
Gig's like, yeah, I get it.
politically, was it with the stable politics, the more progressions you will moving forward, or at least, people know exactly what to do and what not. But now it's a little.
Yeah. It's because now you have the argument of institutions versus government, and how closely they're tied. If institutions are relatively stable, then it doesn't really matter who's or what government is doing. But if it's the other way around, so like space, I'm completely getting off track. My mind is going off track. It depends on the institution. If space is such a valuable enterprise, I would say, then I think you have support from different places. Yeah, I don't really know how to, because it's not just Thailand, it's all developing nations, I would say, are faced with this. No, even America, I would say, because we just got a new president, and people have different goals and stuff. So, okay. Moderators are going crazy. So, okay.
Yes.
It is a heavy topic, and has many layers. And
I'm sure we can talk about it more as well. It's just like, I think we're like 2 hours and a half in now, and I think we have like one last thing to go over.
Yeah, I can rush over it real quick if you want.
Yeah, and then maybe we can continue it next time as well if it's too briefly. Wait. Yes. So the next topic is what pathway to independence of Mars.
Yes. So
That's also a heavy topic.
yes.
Yes.
And it's also open, and we may have answered some aspects to it previously. I just saw, I was looking at it related to international relations in space and whatnot, and we can decide. Same thing how we were saying space junk, or how you were saying Elon Musk going to Mars, should he do it or should he not do it, or do we just tax it from tax it?
Yeah.
So maybe not. You guys are making this hard to speak.
If you guys wondering what's happening, we were just talking about food off the screen.
The chat, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, but back to passageway to Mars and taxing Elon Musk
Okay.
or
Well,
putting
taxing-
So
regulations or whatnot.
And anyways, pathway to independence. One thing, I think we're basically cool with Mars being independent, but you also have to ask, should it be independent? This is very imperialist of me saying that, but so it's also in colonization. The things to avoid as we go forward in space. So I was looking at IR theory called world systems theory. And it deals with core and periphery. And I thought maybe this could be applied to planets and our future. If you envision Earth as the core and let's say Mars or the moon as the periphery, these periphery feed the core with raw things. So like usually it's cheap labor and raw goods. So you can have people mining for diamonds or for gold. It goes to the core, they make jewelry and sell it back to the periphery. That's sort of how it works. And that develops, it sort of showcases how nations develop also. You see capitals are very developed and outer cities are not developed just because of that. And you decide whether you want to break from that or if it works, but it's sort of usually an unending cycle, and it leaves the core always in power. And I was thinking, if in order to escape this developmental thing with people, instead of like, the city on Mars is not developing, what do we do? Well, let's say mining, because we've been talking about that with criminals and miners, and we lost our host. But okay, what if the mining is not done by humans? Let's say all of our work is automated. You have robots who dig up minerals and resources, and then you don't really worry so much about developmental issues in that sense, because there's really no periphery. You sort of chop off that part of the equation. Again, that's sort of a very involved theoretical component to space. But it was just something I thought of. If everyone's, not everyone, let's go with Elon Musk. He's saying that we should have a fully sustainable city on Mars by 2050. Which, we're all hopefully going to be alive by then. So I think we will be. Yeah. Anyways, it feels very much like we're just talking about a make-believe time or a make-believe scenario, but with so much advancement, it's here, it's now, it's in the future. And I think for the first time, you can think about all these crazy sci-fi situations and be like, okay, well, we should think about this because it's right around the corner. At least that was my mode of thinking. if you guys have any other thoughts.
I do. I think Mars is already independent of humans, so it's already there. But if we're talking about a human society there, I think I agree that it's going to have to reach some sort of colonial critical mass
Mm-hmm.
for it to want independence. Because like, if most of what's going to happen there, like mining or industry, is just going to be automation machines. In terms of humans, there might not even be that many. You know, maybe we're talking about a colony of no more than 500 people, and whether that's going to be critical mass to form a city and ask for independence.
Yeah.
Even if you ask for independence, what sustainability or self-sustainability model do you even have? Because like, can you even truly be independent from Earth? Until like you have enough resources, or you've evolved technologically to the point where you're able to create all the resources that you would need as a human to sustain yourself without Earth, I don't think it's possible. But there's also another independence we could be talking about here, and that could be AI and machines. So like, let's just say if we bring a whole bunch of stuff and they evolve, you know, whatever, like machine learning gets to a point where they become self-aware, and then maybe they're like, we want our own society, humans get off Mars. I'm just throwing that out there because like that's another path to independence that we probably don't even fathom necessarily. But yeah, so
I think Hollywood's going to buy that script.
Yeah, they probably will.
Yeah.
Just letting you all know, I'm in the market. If you just want ideas and you want to pay me, I'll sit around, drink cognac all day and tell you what's on my mind.
Hey, they're not sponsoring us that, so don't name drop.
I'm joking. That's not even a brand. It's just a
type,
like
right?
it's just a type.
Yeah.
It's not what I actually do.
Don't put me in and get in jail, please, because we have quite brutal like alcohol regulations. No. Right? We do.
This is not this is not endorsed
alcohol
by
bad.
anyone. Alcohol
okay,
bad.
so I was gonna say it's probably gonna take like a really long time to even like think about independence for like Mars, right? Because well, who's gonna be the first nations that colonize it? How many people are they going to bring there? And then how are their societies gonna evolve, right? I mean, of course, we might be thinking one cities where every nations are just kind of there and build it off that, but maybe it's not. Maybe China are gonna land it somewhere and then have their own colonies that are run by a bunch of Chinese, and then America as well, and then several other countries. I'm sure that whatever culture is gonna evolve from that, it's gonna be already interesting and then quite, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, even I look at America, and when we got our independence, most people here were like, I'm an English citizen, and they're fine being English, they're just unhappy about a few things, more than a few, but a few. So I see people going to Mars and being like, yeah, even if we get to the point where there's hospitals up there and you're born on Mars, I think you would still claim citizenship to wherever,
I don't know. I kind of have like second mind. I think you're just gonna claim as being Martians, and yeah, maybe your ethnic is like from this specific country or regions on Earth.
But you got to kind of think about what does being Martian give you? Because at the same time, like when we talk about, if we're talking about like nationalities or legal, if like you're like, cool, I'm a Martian, but like maybe they're just like not really any resources here. Maybe there aren't a lot of opportunities, depending. I think people, part of like not only the legal aspect, but the cultural aspect of being part of a nation. Like, what's your identity?
Probably come down to like maybe policy that Earth have for Mars as well. It's like, are we gonna, go into this saying that it's just an extended of Earth, or are we gonna give them an opportunities to establish themselves, like, their own governmentals and things like that? So it could go like both way. If I think, example from The Expanse for being such a realistic sci-fi show, I think it was more treated like an extended of Earth, right? So that's why there's so much tensions between Mars and Earth, even like the tension between builders, because it's always an obligations for Martians or builder to go out there and get all the resources, and then they have to contribute it back to Earth, because supposedly Earth is the heaven, like for airs and resources and things like that. I mean,
it's targeted at about 100 years in the future, roughly. Yeah. And the other thing about that too is like the way that was structured was, people went in droves, and it was more of like, well, there's more opportunity in space for me than there is here on Earth. So like there's enough of a push factor to, like, maybe overpopulation, maybe just economic opportunities not happening, maybe just the concept that whatever life out there has to be better than what I have right now here.
Yeah.
And then people just get in, they go, and they risk it. They don't tell you about how many people died trying. They didn't tell you like how long the terraforming project took.
Yeah.
I mean, it took a while, and even then, arguably it failed. But like, to your point though, it's like the core versus a periphery, where you just, all the resources are getting channeled back to Earth, resentment builds, and then that sort of resentment can lead to a form of independence when people feel like they're deprived of the same rights that other people are getting.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people are not aware that, okay, the first generations that go venture into space, yes, at the moment is scientists, really brilliant mind of people, right? But to build an economy, you need a lot of workforce. Maybe they are not scientists. Maybe they're more focused toward labels. Yes, like engineering and all that. But, you need a lot of laborers.
I think until society advances to a point where, well, I guess where we advance to a point technologically where space travel is much easier than it is now, we can't really consider a lot of other types of people going up there in my mind. Because I think about it, right? Like when you think about movies like Armageddon, how practical is it for you to train like drillers to become astronauts, or is it more practical for you to train astronauts to become drillers? You know what I mean? So like, which one would require more training? And I think about like, well, there's so much training that goes into just being like a pilot, like an Air Force pilot. With all that training, you have to go through G's. You have to like mentally prepare yourself for the strain that's going to be on your body. And so like, are those skills harder earned than perhaps these other skills that we talk about for what are also essential jobs? And I'm just wondering, like, do those people have to be trained in everything even to get out there and survive?
Personally, I don't think like that they should. I think, you could be trained to be in the 0G, or, take care of yourself in space, and then just learn the skill that you're going to be working at. Like, you don't, like, say if you're going to be as asteroid miner, then that's all you need. You don't need to know how to fly the plane. People, that, have that job fly you there, and you just need to be out there doing the job. I mean, that's my opinion.
I suppose, and I could see both of your points. It depends on how developed we get. I think right now, at least for NASA, it's like a 2-year program to become an astronaut. But if we can, going back to SpaceX with the new Dragon ship, it's almost completely hands off. You don't do anything. And I think it was either yesterday or sometime this past week, they're training there's a crew of Inspiration 4 who are completely civilians. They went through basic 0G simulation, and they'll do basic science, but they're not astronauts. They didn't go through the 2-year program. They weren't hand selected. They didn't apply. So I can see with things like Starship and different vehicles being designed, if we could get to the point where it's hands off, I'm assuming we've all been on a plane. The only thing you have to know is if you sit next to an emergency exit, you got to help people off and open the window.
Yeah.
So besides that basic knowledge of it sounds ironic, but like basic knowledge of a spaceship, if you could just teach that basic stuff, then you don't have to be an astronaut. It's like, okay, here's a jackhammer, here's a shovel, go.
Yeah.
So
and of course, like for safety, as human, we wanted to like learn everything so we could be safe for all types of incidents or possibilities that might occur. But at the same time, when you venture into something new like this, the new world, it's like, as bad as it sounds, but I feel like people are like could potentially be that expendable. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to like say that people are expendable, but in reality, it's like, yeah, we don't want any harm to come to these people, but it's a high risk being out of space. Like even in, colonizations, you're going to different lands, like you don't know what kind of diseases or what not that could affect your body, right? And then there's a lot of death before your body become immune, or you learn a better way of handling the life or living situations.
I think we're going to see a variety of what we discussed. And I say that because like the reason we go through so much rigorous training right now, and there's eventually going to have to be a boot camp, some training time where like you have to be able to at least know how to move in 0G or like navigate your thrusters, whatever it's going to be. But I think it's because we really just don't want people dying. I mean, like the fact is, if you have like 5 people on a space station and something goes wrong, you might have automated systems, but if everything fails, you're going to have to rely on those 5 people to help all of you survive. And I think, but like the to your point, as we evolve or like as we advance, maybe that's not, we don't care about that. Maybe it's just shove 300 people into the ship, give them some basic spacesuits, give them to that planet. Maybe like 5 people need to know how to fly it. And once everyone gets there, whatever, they have enough training to just do the basic thing, but we don't expect them to save the ship if it goes wrong.
Actually, with this topic come really interesting idea, which is now it could link back to space economy and industry. Like just whatever issues or the things that we discussed now could potentially turn into a business. Maybe there's space insurance, or there's like, a school that specialize in training people to survive, in space or 0G. There's a lot of things. Maybe, like it's maybe just different factors as well. A company come together into building this sort of thing. But yeah, until then, it's just trials and error and see.
Yeah, like kind of what you're getting at, like with like here, right? With enough trade, roads are built. With roads, stores and stalls are set up. There's commerce. People specialize. People do auxiliary functions. I think space will be similar if the foundations and bones are laid down to the point where it can become a regular thing and people can trade freely and make enough money off it. And I think of it like a diving school, right? Like people might do it because it's part of their job, but other people just do it for pleasure. Or maybe, but there are people who get paid to train regardless because that's something that people want to do and specialize in.
Yeah.
And to our point earlier, like the drilling, I was thinking about like underwater welding being kind of something similar in a way, except instead of dealing with the pressure from the like how deep down you are, you're dealing with the lack of pressure from space. Vacuum. So it's like so I'm just thinking maybe somebody like that would be suited for good work.
Well, I like me and my friends, we were sort of we did a paperwork for JAX, which I'm gonna talk about it later, maybe hopefully next week. I'll see. But basically, we were trying, to build up a colony, right? And then one of the things when it comes to the talk of politics, it's quite optimistic way we go on about it, because we said that, well, obviously we have to establish some sort of Mars government, right? And then by doing that, to make sure that everybody is treating equal and fairly, we wanted to make sure that each and every citizens on Mars are, somewhat quite intellect or educated. And then if they're not, then, Mars University kind of exists to help people to go through with that. It's like, there's like a whole system that we're trying to set, which is mandatory and also voluntary system. But we're going to focus more on the mandatory, where yes, it's an obligation for you to learn the politics, or at least not, extremely in depth, but enough for you to go on and then make decisions that could potentially push the entire colony into like a progression phase or more harmonious stage.
Mm-hmm.
You're
So,
looking
yeah.
for model
Yeah,
systems.
it's like trade schools here,
Yeah.
or on Earth, I'll say. You have people learning to be plumbers or carpenters or welders and things like that, and those are all extremely useful. So if you have trade schools for Mars, and then you could also include leadership classes, or development classes, like you're talking about, which would not only do you have skilled laborers, but you have people who can actually contribute to the well-being of society. Even if it's, we say like a colony, we might find that, maybe there's really nothing on Mars. So it's just like an outpost. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we can make, I don't know, we find little magnets and we can make these little things. And it's like, okay, we can get that at Mars. And that's all we can use Mars for.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. So people study to do that. They go, they do it, they come back. And that's that.
Yeah.
But same thing like in any company, you could be a good worker and you can help the company grow. So
I was thinking, because like when you guys brought up the trade school system, the university system, kind of making what a model citizen would look like, because the bar has to be so much higher. Because I think about it like
Yeah.
here, people might just drop out of school to 6th grade or something and be like,
Yeah.
whatever, I'm just gonna, like, I'll have food, there'll be water, I'll have resources. There yet people die. Like there's not really an option for you to just do nothing. You have to
Yeah,
do
you have
the
to.
work, because every second you consume resources is like,
Yeah.
there aren't any to replace that, as much as there would be here, like in a way. Like the resources are even more finite, so you would have to, you have to be, you have to have a skill and you have to contribute to society. I'm just thinking what happens when people don't buy into that. Because like what happens when you get people who are like, nah, like I've been here for 1 generation, 2 generations maybe, and I don't feel like doing it anymore. Like what do you do with that decision?
I can't remember exactly how we punish, or I think the thing is, one of the things that seemed to brought up is that people do have an options to move back to Earth.
Yeah, but then they're going to take some of your resources with them when they go
Yes, but
to survive the
again,
journey,
it's
right?
still really vague concept, so we haven't really
Yeah.
get quite in depth into punishing. I think what we have right now is more about the building, but yeah, it's definitely really interesting questions, because whatever culture is going to evolve, it's going to be based around resources and the survival of Mars and the people who living on Mars, right? I don't know. I don't think it's smart to be on Mars and be like, I don't want to do this. I'm like, okay, be ready, because it's only going to go down from here if you stop, doing something that managerial, right?
Yeah.
Unless
Well,
you
it
leave. Or,
like we were talking about criminal justice,
Mhm.
and we're talking about resources. I mean, these are resources, you know. So if yes, if it not to like diminish killing someone, but like if you kill someone on Mars, you're not just killing a person, you're killing a resource. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's yeah, so it's like everything you do has so much more weight, because it's not like, okay, let me walk over here. No, you have to put the whole suit on and whatnot. So
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Like my
No,
camera
it's
just
fine.
literally went dead.
Which comes into, like, I hate to say, but so like a concept in Expanse or
Yes.
even Star Trek to a degree is the recycler, and they use it for very
Soylent
different
Green.
things. Soylent
Soylent
Green,
Green.
exactly, with extra green. But like the concept's there, right? In Star Trek, when you had some resources and you are just like, I'm good. I didn't eat all this food. You put it in the recycler, it reuses them. Awesome. In the Expanse, when you die, or you just don't like somebody and you want to murder them, like have some street justice, they go in the recycler. So you keep the resources. So to me, it's just interesting. Like you have two concepts here, and it again different ethics, different situations, but they're both still thinking about recycling those resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
We would also have to get to the point where we, because when I look at a person and I look at them as a resource, I kind of see labor. I don't be like, he'd make a good cheeseburger, you know? So,
Well, or like you make good soil, but or the point is like when you're out there and your resources are limited, is that a conversation? Do you
And then
have burials?
you don't
Can you
want to
have
put
burials?
somebody into like recycle or death sentence simply because they just choose not to imply on something. That's quite a harsh way to
Oh
go
no,
about
for
it, right?
sure. But I'm just thinking like so you die, right? And resources are short and like hard to come by. But we have our traditions. We have our
Mhm.
cultures and we have our ideas around how the dead should be treated. Do we put them in a recycler or do we
Okay.
do that traditional ritual? I'm
So,
just thinking from that
so
aspect.
maybe before we get there, I think
Yeah.
also, come back to
Yeah.
what my friends, Mate, Yulia, and I, we sort of established is that it seems like, healthcare, it's also a big thing as well. So I think before we decide on the punishment, we have to define on why is the person the way they are. Are they having a psychological issues? Are they just being, you know, like bad, or how it is? And then, well, bad, yeah, maybe, yeah, of course you're gonna have to enforce a certain harsher punishment, right? But then if people are suffering something mentally, then we have to fix that first. Like we can't just push people into labor just because they're going through some change in our evolutions by being out in space or on Mars, right?
Yeah.
So maybe, yes, maybe when it comes to that kind of situation, it it probably would cost Mars its resources, right? But it depends on our mentalities or perceptions of, or how we want our society to be. Then
well,
yeah.
yeah. My thought is, we're sort of talking about it as if Earth stopped existing.
Mm-hmm.
Earth is still there. And I think if you want people to colonize Mars,
Mm-hmm.
it's very attractive that you can go do this and come back. If I don't know how I ended up on Gig's planet, but if I'm on her planet And it's like, okay, I'm going to work. My contract is 2 years. I really don't like this. My 2 years is up, and I go home. So if you're talking about like keeping people because they're a workforce, I think you have to set it as contracts. It's like, look, you start and there's an end, and then the next wave of people come. If you like it, you can renew your contract, have a vacation on Earth, and come back. Things like that, because anywhere. If you guys like Thailand, if I like Florida, if Brent, where are you, Brent? California? Okay,
Yeah.
he likes California. All right. But still, we like to vacation other places, Even I can breathe here, I can eat here, I can walk, fine. I have gravity. But so same thing, even if Mars becomes the most awesome place. I forgot what that movie was with Brad Pitt, Ad Astra. They had a subway up there and all that stuff. It's like, okay, it's a cool place, but you can't make it forever. So that was my thought. When you're thinking about colonists
So
leaving, you can't necessarily punish them.
It might come down to at which stage of the colonizations are we talking about here, right? Because different stage, different numbers of people, different solutions, and different problems. But I think it's always a good thing to make the options of travel back like as an option.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's gonna be, let's say we're talking about way in like advance into the futures. Like, what about the people who born on Mars? Do they have a place on Earth? How do Earth, like, how do the Earth are gonna feel about it? But yeah, maybe a conversations for other day. It's quite. It was really interesting conversations on Mars independence that we're going on there.
Yeah, we covered a whole ton of topics, so that was cool.
Stuff.
In 3 hours.
Yeah, we covered quite a bit in 3 hours. That's it.
All right. So yeah, guys, should we call it out a day?
Probably. It's been 3 hours, so.
Yeah, we should.
All right. Thank you for joining. Yes.
Just space news, if people are interested, coming up on the 20th, Bezos is launching himself up in his new spaceship.
Really?
Richard Branson just went to space.
Yep.
And I guess he's buddies with Elon Musk, and Musk bought a ticket on Virgin Atlantic. So
whoa.
For like $10,000, and the ticket is like $250,000. But anyways, I think that's what's happening, and I think this month or next month, Starship is going orbital, and they'll go around the world and land next to Hawaii. So should be cool.
Yeah, that's gonna be quite an interesting event to follow up on.
Yeah, that could completely change our discussion topics.
Yeah, it could.
Good.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been wonderful, like usual. Just I don't know, man. You're just talking about so many interesting things.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So have a good day, everyone. Make sure you eat, get some good sleep.
And see you next. See you tomorrow, right? Peter?
No, I think it's just you and me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Okay. Just me and you and the audience.
Yes, I mean, if you really want it, you can use your wishes to make Brent appear. All right, wait. Okay, before I'm gonna cut off, I'm gonna sell my merch again. So, guys, if you want this buy one get one free, just comment like going to Mars, and then we'll send you a code for the website. But yeah, thank you everyone. Then have a good night, have a good day, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
So yeah, thank you.